Unscripted.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of PD and P-Dubs Unscripted. P-Dubs, good to be with you here.
Hey, it's awesome to be back together again and in the house. And we have another guest.
We have another guest. This might be the quickest return for a recurring guest, and it's world-renowned author Kevin Kindelin.
Yay.
Very nice intro.
Yeah. Kevin, welcome back to the PD and P-Dubs studios.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I just was here for 50s Plus.
Yes.
I was here with Terry
And
and her husband, Doug. It was great to be there with them. It is to be at 50s Plus with them. But now I'm here to hawk my own thing.
Yeah, which just went out on Amazon on Sunday. Yeah. Tell us the big news.
Well, oh boy, where do I start with this one?
Well, his book has been published.
Yes,
on Amazon.
On Amazon, so you can buy it there. But the story behind it is,
what's the title before you get to the story?
At Least I Tried.
At Least I Tried. And you can get it on Kindle for $9.99.
Right, and then there's paperback.
So, paperback is like $15.99.
$17.99 now.
Oh, it went up.
It went up because I thought it was interesting. I'm just pulling up Amazon right now. Kevin's trying to really get some money out of us here on this one.
That's the original price, $17.99 for the paperback and $19.99 for.
I think I paid $18.99 for hardcover.
Why? Because you got
maybe the first day
Amazon Prime. Are you?
Oh, I did.
Well, yeah, I got mine before tax, $18.54.
Ooh.
So, and then it went up to $19.99. So I was like, good thing being one of those first people. But yeah, $18.54. But now I see it's $19.99.
But that's if you don't have Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay, which we do have.
Which if you have under your account, you got it for that.
Well, it doesn't look like it. It only looks like the paperback has a Prime discount.
Oh, okay.
Call Amazon. I don't know.
I had to buy something else in order to spend like, I guess, $35 so I get free shipping. So I bought myself a couple of bird feeders.
Okay.
You like your bird feeder.
I love my birds.
I've seen that too when I've gone to Amazon.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, I can do that. We got a couple that are seen the last days, so it's time to get some new tube feeders. So.
What I was surprised when I went on there and looked at it was the difference in the time frame that you'll get the paperback as opposed to the hardcover.
Yes.
A few days as opposed to a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because right now, if you order, and this is on Tuesday, March 26th, if you were to order the paperback, you would get it by Thursday, March 28th, Maundy Thursday. What a great Easter gift for people.
It would be.
And hardcover, it says April 8th to April 12th. That's just, Kevin, I just don't know if I can wait that long.
I know. I was torn. I wanted to get it right away. And I thought, Maundy Thursday would be good. But then I'm like, I want a hardcover. It needs to be like...
It needs to last.
Yeah, permanence. Yeah.
And it's got that nice cover on it. It boils down to where did this... Who is this guy that he's so audacious and has so much gall that he's going to write a book about himself?
I mean, that's kind of what I was wondering.
But where does that come from? It's an autobiography.
It's a good first question.
And it's where do I start? And that's the whole thing. I never thought I was going to write this book. All my life I've been a writer, but I never thought I would write this book. I thought when I was in my 20s that I would be writing that great American novel, some type of fiction. I wanted to be compared with Steinbeck and Salinger and of course not Tolkien, but then again, he's English, but great American writers.
Steinbeck of Mice and Men?
Mice and Men.
All right.
And Salinger, Catcher in the Rye?
Yes, sir.
Oh, all right.
Look at us go.
All right.
You remember your high school reading.
We're very literate.
Classic.
I do like both those books. I would say those two and Lord of the Flies are like my three favorite books I read.
That's who you remember. These are the guys that you remember. That's who I wanted to be remembered with. But then, I don't know, somewhere along the line, after writing a few short stories and some bad attempts at poetry, I gave up on fiction. Most of my life I've written newspaper articles and newsletters and things like that. And I gave up on writing the fiction and even writing a book. But then along the years, I've been telling my stories about things that have happened to me and things that I've lived through and things that I've survived. And people said, well, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I've always said, no, I don't want to write a book because I'd have to dig in some difficult memories to be able to write an honest portrayal of what that book should be. So, no. Every time I would yakety-yak about one of my stories, I would reply no. Then one day I was telling one of those stories to Fred Siebert, one of our church members. It was right at inside the main entrance. And when I said no to his comment that I should write a book, he looked at me dead in the eye and said, you just might help somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where it hit me. That
He got you.
He kind of convicted you.
And it was like, okay, it's all about me, but it's not all about me. The
Right.
book is all about me, but
Tells your story.
tells my story, but it helping somebody is not about me.
Right, right.
It's like I'm the example that can help somebody. That if I've lived through it, if I've gone through all these things, and I never gave up, and I keep plugging away, well, then you can too. That's basically what it comes down to, the endurance of the human spirit.
Yeah, so for those of our listeners who don't know or are familiar with your story and why you're writing, your story, can you kind of give us a, thumbnail sketch of what happened in your life
Sure.
to bring you to wanting to share your life story?
Okay, I was 19 in college, sophomore year in college, and I was coming out of a party. And I was a really good, fit, young, athletic man. And in my partied state of mind, shall I say,
Okay.
inebriated, a lot of alcohol, mostly beer, as a college rugby kid will do. It's a man-child, 19 in a man's body and a child's brain. Coming out of that party, I guess I decided to do a handstand on a balcony railing and didn't hold it for too long, I guess, and plummeted to the sidewalk and broke my neck, which paralyzed me from the chest down pretty much. I have some use of my arms, but some of the muscles are paralyzed and hands are paralyzed, and of course I can't walk. So that was in college. So that was a long time ago. That was 1979. And then I was in the hospital for 6 months, rehabilitating, recovering. Got myself back to college about a year later, a year from the accident. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically that's where it was.
Yeah.
Right, we got to leave something for the reader. You can't give all the stories in
Exactly.
there.
But that's basically boom. That's where it. Then okay, from there, that's where it is. That's where it starts. That's the background. Then when I realized I was paralyzed is where I start the story. I mean, there's some background,
Yeah.
that I refer to, but it's basically chronologically going through what I had to deal with. First, the hospitalization and rehabilitation, and going back to school.
Yeah, that must have been quite a day, filled with a lot of emotion when you went back a year later to campus. Was it the same campus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Illinois State?
Illinois State.
All right. He's a Redbird.
Redbird.
And so, how did that day go? Like, were your friends there to greet you, and was there excitement to have you back? Were you having a little trepidation about it?
Good question. Good question. The first thing I can remember is how bleak it was, because it was the spring semester, which occurs in the winter. And it was cold and snowy and icy and wintry. And there were a couple of friends that actually helped us bring our stuff back to school. My brother went with me, actually, to be my first caregiver.
Okay.
So there were a couple other guys that helped us bring our stuff. But I didn't get the welcome. I mean,
Okay.
I did get that in a visit when I was actually still in the Rehabilitation Institute, but on a weekend visit, which is part of the story, so I won't tell all of it. But I did get a great greeting from all those people. But when I actually returned it was like a ghost town. They weren't there.
Hmm.
I didn't have the same group of friends.
Oh, it was a
They just seemed to have disappeared.
And
wow.
that had to have been hard.
Yeah.
Oh, it hurt. It hurt really bad. And, I think I can understand why. I think it hit too close to home. Like what happened to me could
Could have happened to any of them, right?
the rugby players, especially.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I went back to the rugby matches and wanted to be part of the rugby culture and be,
Yeah.
all that. But I just felt like I was on the outside looking in, so I didn't really continue with that.
Okay.
But what hurt me was my roommates, my previous roommates, and all that other group of friends that they just kind of disappeared. So I had to make a whole new set of friends.
Wow. Wow.
And, but, it was not too hard to make new friends.
Sure.
But it just hurt that those other people weren't there.
Yeah. Wow.
But as far as like how I felt while going there, I was scared. I was terrified.
Oh, I'll bet.
But I didn't let anybody see that.
Mm-hmm.
I put up that brave face, of course. But yeah, going back to school, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, this is,
Yeah.
it wasn't so
And like, like a whole new regimen of like daily routine, right? Like, not only, getting up and getting ready to go to class, but then going to class and
And even like I was saying, like taking notes. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know we were talking before about, having you sign our copies, but that writing aspect, like taking notes in a class, that had to have been nearly impossible.
It was. I got all set up with all the fancy equipment from the state. I had a fancy typewriter that was electric and self-erase. Had a tape recorder. But I found that after I tape recorded the lectures, I had to listen to them all over again.
yeah, I'd be the same
And
way.
how was I supposed to, how was that helping me?
Right.
So I started to rely on my memory a bit more.
Mm.
And when, push came to shove, I would ask a classmate if I could copy their notes.
Mm-hmm.
And people would come through.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
A lot of support went on back. There weren't too many of me back in those days. When
Yeah.
I was returning to school in wheelchairs, and Illinois State wasn't that accessible, so it was kind of difficult. One of the things I didn't like, but I had to do, was go to a power chair. In those days, I used a manual chair, and power chairs were just manual chairs with motors and belts and making a lot of noise. And I felt very uncomfortable in those things, but it was necessary to get around campus. But I remember that. That was one of the things I had to. That was a new thing, was to get the power chair.
So, what year of school were you in? Did you say you were a junior, sophomore?
Sophomore.
And so, were you able to complete and graduate in 2 years after that, after coming back, or did it take a little longer?
Academically, yes. There was a year in between,
Okay, right.
but it was at the end of my first semester of sophomore year,
Okay.
and I had earned enough. It depended on the class. Some of the classes I'd done enough work to pass the class. Mm-hmm. So I had an option. Would I take that C, or did I want to? There were a few tests or papers or whatever it would be to finish the class. So it was up to the individual instructors. Or just how I would do it. So some of them I'll just take that grade and the class is finished. And the others I did the papers or the tests and finished off the semester. So I did it academically in 4 years, but it took me 5 years to do it.
And that felt good when you did graduate college, being able to accomplish that. Because I bet there was some unknown, especially in that year off, of what was the future going to hold.
I remember it very vividly. It was a feeling of no big deal. This is what I should have done. I
Okay.
can't pat myself on the back.
Right.
How dare you? You're the one who messed up.
Okay.
How dare you?
Right, right.
I never, ever stopped kicking myself.
I'll bet.
And that's what drove me through it. It took a long time.
And then coming out of college, looking for your first job in your career, that probably had to be met with even greater challenge. You know, the interviewing process, all of this, you know, how people reacted to you in the business world as you interviewed.
Are you sure you didn't read the book yet?
I didn't. No, I did not.
I spoke of that because that was
Okay.
That was one of the things that was most difficult. I came out of college so naive. So, okay, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to get a job. You know, put my resume out there, I'm going to get one of those entry-level public relations type jobs because I could no longer do the physical work it would take to be in radio or television production. And then if I switched gears more to writing, but I didn't get into the newspaper thing because I didn't feel I could keep up. So I didn't write for the school newspaper. So that was a strike against me. So I shifted my focus to public relations and figured, you know, with my writing background and communication skills, I'll get a job in public relations. Put my resume out there, got a lot of interviews, but I didn't put on my resume that I'm a person with a disability.
Right. Why would you?
I want to do that. So I go into their waiting room, and when the hiring manager would come around the bend and come around to greet me, it's like, oh, wheelchair, what's that?
Now, is that something you share, like how that felt, seeing that in the book, or?
I share that, yeah,
Okay.
about how I would get that initial interview, but that after the perfunctory interview where I would get callbacks, or I even got the blatant response was, we can't hire you. Our insurance won't cover you.
Wow. Wow.
And in the 80s, this was,
It was a big deal. Yeah.
and I could get away with that, though. There was no law that restricted that behavior. The ADA had not been signed into law yet. So actually, that came about after I got employed, but it took a while before I was given a break by someone who knew of my abilities from me actually being a groupie.
Oh, wow.
I would follow around one of my buddy's bands, so a groupie, I guess. It's a weird term, but it was a high school. You know, we were in the high school jazz band together. We were throughout that band, so we were really good friends. We met freshman year. And he was one of the guys who actually stuck with me after my before friends, my high school friends, all those guys, they were with me before and after. College friends, not the same, but that's a different story. But anyway, I would go around and listen to the group that he was playing in. He was a professional by that time, a young professional. I remember the name of the group was Jugular. And the percussionist was also the manager of the Center for Disabled Student Services at Chicago Citywide College. And so it just so happened that one day Dave and Kim McDaniel was the manager, was the percussionist. They were at a group meeting, and Dave just happened to perk up after a few years of me not being able to secure employment. It's like, do you have any jobs at that college that might fit Kevin's skills? You know, he's a writer of public relations, and Kim, who knew me from years of me following the band, said, why not hire a person with a disability to work with people with disabilities?
Hey, there's
There
a
you
concept.
go.
Light bulb, ding, 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 ding. So even though I had no experience in that profession or that working with that population, that it was actually adult students with developmental disabilities, not physical disabilities. Work with them in the academics and such. But he said, why not give this guy a chance and teach him the skills, the concepts and all that. So I finally got a job.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
What a.
That for being a groupie.
So take that. Yeah, there's a relationship, and you got a break, and
Those connections where somebody that knows you can speak to, hey, even though you might have this disability, we know there's certain things that you still can do.
And since he knew me and knew of my, just mental abilities, I guess, because we were just friends, he thought, well, this guy, he knows what I could do, or what my potential was.
Right, because I mean, I know you're a grammarian there. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't ask me to help proof your book for all your grammar.
Don't get me started. We'll go on objects and subjects.
No.
It's even out on the bulletin board. Who did the bulletin board?
Not me.
I shouldn't say that. I'll be quiet. I won't say anything further. But it was finally a break.
Yeah.
Because in those days they didn't have the laws. The American Disabilities Act didn't exist at that time. So they could blatantly discriminate. And I did have that happen. And I was blessed to have a person give me a break, get my foot in the door, and then from there you create a work history and then you just keep going.
Because is that the same school that you worked with till you retired earlier this year?
No. But that school actually was dismantled while I was still working there. My job as education specialist I was hired as to work with that population of students, developmentally disabled students with mental disabilities, teaching them English, math, vocational skills to get basic jobs in the workforce, whereas they didn't have any ability to do so. So it's kind of a bridge type education for them to get to the workforce. And I was working under a grant that didn't get refunded. So instead of not having a job, they created the position of editor for me because they knew that of my writing, my education, and I began fiddling with their dormant newsletter. So they kind of, let's give this guy a shot. So until 3 years after that, when they dismantled the college, then I go to this job and the next job and others. But AIU was my last employment. But actually, it wasn't a whole lot. I only had only three major employments over my 30-some plus year career.
It's amazing that 30 years. I can't even imagine working for that long.
No. Well, I guess I've been working for 30 years, but never at the same place. I think here at Emmanuel's my longest tenure at any given organization.
I was going to say that's me too, because Jewel was 7 years and I'm 8 here.
Yeah, 7 was like in business was kind of like, I don't know, it was like the unconscious, okay, time to move on or seek something else kind of thing, or it just happened that way. But
you were called. You're
a
different story. Being a pastor is a different gig.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's a calling where you're throwing your whole life into it. It's a vocation. Mine was just a job.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more who I was when I called myself editor. That was part of who I was rather than things that I did.
Yeah. There is a transition there, isn't there?
And I think a lot of people find that like their identity and what their job is. And that's why you see a lot like when people retire, they kind of like, what's my purpose here anymore? Because I was so long known as whatever, fill in the blank for whatever their job is. And then they don't have that identity anymore in that. And that can cause emotional problems.
Well, and you kind of struggle with that a little bit too, as you kind of wound down your career recently. And, it was like you found yourself in that struggle.
And there was that I was struggling with working, but not with that particular job.
Right.
But it was working. It was so important to me to get that job in the beginning because no one would hire me at first.
Right.
So having employment and being employed, especially a person with a disability being employed, was so important to me that when that was winding down, I was kind of, what is my identity? What am I going to be doing? And then the book came along.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't come along, but that filled the gap. At least that was
so getting back to the book and the reason you wrote it, maybe there's someone listening right now who has a physical disability and is kind of living what you've gone through in your life. Or maybe there's someone who knows someone in their family or a friend or whatever. Like, how would you speak to them about what you're trying to accomplish with this book for someone like that?
I would tell that person, or the person who knows that person, that it's a story about just not giving up. You're going to run into, and not just me or people with extreme physical limitations, but just your ordinary Joe. We have so many things that we run into that are going to make us want to give up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's easy to give up on
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, that speaks to the one word as I'm looking at like the back cover of your book, and that word resilience comes up, and maybe I can read that what's on the back cover because that's not spoiling anything, right?
No, that's there for the
Okay.
So it says, this is the autobiography of Kevin Kindelin, who at the young age of 19 faced a life-altering spinal cord injury while attempting a handstand. The fall left him paralyzed from the chest down, including his hands and parts of his arms. Despite the challenges, Kevin graduated and tried to pursue a career in public relations. Facing numerous rejections due to the perceptions about his disability, it took him most of his life to find a church where he could nurture his faith and connect with God. Through his journey, Kevin learns the power of perseverance and the importance of listening to the inner voice that urges him to keep going. It's a story of resilience, faith, and unyielding human spirit. So I think we've hit upon the resilience, and maybe this is a good kind of transition into probably a part that's important to us as pastors, the faith aspect, you know.
Yeah, you're reading my mind, man.
I recall that I didn't even think about praying when I was first injured, through the rehabilitation process, through all of that. I had the mustard seed of faith. I didn't deny Jesus. I didn't deny my faith. It just wasn't something that I felt that I had to put anything into. I didn't have to make any effort towards it. It was just, yeah, you're there. He saved me. It's all there. We'll go to church on Christmas, go to church on Easter. But there wasn't really anything I had to do about it. It was all up to me. It was my inner strength. It was me that I was going to do it with the help of my family and friends. But then along the way, it's just when things got their worst, he's shown the brightest. And as after, the book will go through a lot of things that I've been through, but there was a time where it was just after the divorce and things weren't going, after a bad relationship after that, I was just going in the wrong direction. And I felt that tapping on the shoulder of turn around, you need to come back to me. You've been gone a long time.
Wow.
Voice wasn't as clear as that, but the message was.
Yeah.
And it was, I have to find a church.
So this was like an undeniable
Calling.
feeling or calling.
Yeah, it was like, I've got to go back to church. I've never not believed in you, but now I got to start looking towards you instead of just kind of taking you for granted. I've got to make an effort there. So, the first thing I had to do is go to church. Well, I was Catholic, but I don't really, it's not important. I don't want to do that really, but what do I want to do? It's like denomination wasn't really important to me. But I wanted to find a place where I could pursue Christianity. And I went to one of the mega churches, and I'm not going to say who it was, but I didn't like it. It seemed like, okay, this might be a terrible term, but a meat market of Christians. And so it's a lot of people milling around. And fellowship is important, but it doesn't seem like that was it. It was just a meeting place, a greeting place. Because the message of the pastor was something that contradicted itself within its own message.
Oh.
He talked about staying put in the community and not moving on for that more attractive job, that higher paying position. It just was in a different town, a different community. You got to stay put and be part of that community and make the community grow. And in the same sermon, he talked about how much his wife liked to move from community to community. So I was like, I was with a friend, and we looked at each other. Yeah, no, this isn't right. And then a friend of mine recommended a church down the street, and that happened to be Emmanuel, and it literally is a mile away. And I started attending, and poked my nose in, and I liked what I saw, and I became a member.
Wow.
Now, when you first started, so when did you come to Emmanuel?
2005.
2005. So when you started coming 2005, were you kind of just flying the wall, or not, or similar to how you are now, where everybody knows you and you kind of engage with everybody?
Not at first. I would zip in and zip out. Zip into the message and zip out. I felt so out of place. I didn't engage. It was kind of like, I'm new here, but people started to reach out to me.
Because would one of those people be like John Malding? Because I know you were pretty tight with John.
It was actually his wife, Wendy, first. Oh. Wendy was the first person who reached out to me and, talked to her in Fellowship Hall. And, well, you should meet my husband, John. And he was up in Bible study, and I met John, and, we hit it off right away. He was my close buddy. John Malding passed away a few years ago. But he was a great guy. He was one of those guys who looked at things differently than most people.
Yeah, he sure did.
And he gave you a different perspective on things. He was always in a Bible study or class. And Bill Harder would laugh at this too. That John would raise his hand and say, well, I see it a little differently. And you'd have to listen because it was well thought out.
Yeah.
And it forced you to look at things differently, to open up your mind and reconsider what you were thinking. And I still miss him. But they were one of the first few people that I'd met here. But then more people it was just welcomed me in and kept coming back and getting more and more engaged.
Yep.
And
you began to be a reader for Scripture. I remember that.
I remember you as an elder when I first came aboard here.
Yeah.
And I think you're elder emeritus, right? I think he can go to any elders meeting he wants.
Yeah.
I hold on to elder emeritus. That's just kind of like I go back and I act like I'm important.
Oh, you are important.
One of my first distinct memories of you as elder, I think it was you were elder or reader. I never realized how fast that chair could go. And it was like time for the reading, and we're all like looking around. We knew you were the reader because, they had the microphone set up. Like, where's Kevin? Where's Kevin? And you come booking down that side aisle, man, and you make that hard left turn by the pulpit. And I'm like, oh, man, that thing flies.
Surprised I didn't fall out of the chair.
And I know you said how fast it goes. I think you would say 9 miles an hour. 6.
Ooh.
Well, dude, it looked like you were cruising 30. I mean,
inside it looks fast.
And he wasn't even strapped in.
No.
No, that's for driving, so I don't flip over. Or left turn.
Well, I mean, I think the two things I always think of you, Kevin, is whenever the mic was set up for you to be reading, before everybody comes in singing some Tom Jones into the mic.
It's not unusual?
Yeah. And
Dave Mueller would be with it. Oh, there's a funny story behind an article I wrote regarding that. Well, AJ was his name.
Oh, AJ Weller.
Yeah, AJ Weller.
Hey, another 2 weeks in a row.
He's getting...
AJ was a little upset, Pastor Pete, because last week, Kevin, we had our 100th episode, and we were talking, and AJ said he's the number one fan of our podcast. And I received a text from him on Monday saying that it took us 12 minutes to mention him in that podcast. And I said, well, the number one fan of our podcast shouldn't be listening to it on Monday when it came out on a Wednesday. It should be. And he said there was basketball because he's a U of I fan. And, with them in the Sweet 16. So, AJ, when you're listening, I'm sure I'll be getting a text about this.
Well, you get your second mention.
Well, we need to have our number one listener in the studio soon.
Again?
Why not?
Yeah, he's going to probably complain because Kevin was just on and we've had Kevin back.
I know.
But AJ delivered one of the best lines to me. Dave and I came in before the service to set up the mic for a reading. Because I was doing it as elder or was I doing as a sign reader? Regardless, we come in to test out the microphone and the placement and all that, and I look into it. And I start doing the Tom Jones thing. It's not unusual, and AJ just happened to be up at the balcony, unbeknownst to either Dave or me, and just shouts down, "Kevin, mic's not on." That's this little jive about good thing the mic's not on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the other thing, and I don't know if you've ever noticed what Kevin and I do, especially if it's at the 8 o'clock when I have the common cup. Whenever he gets his cup, he kind of cheers me, and I cheers him back with the common cup. Yep. I missed that with you not coming back to the 8 o'clock.
It just got easier to do my shopping before, and then come to Bible study, and then go to the 10:30.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, every once in a while you still come up to 8 o'clock, and I'm excited because I get to do the little cheers. And I think you kind of forgot the one time when it was like the first time after like COVID.
Maybe the first time, but not after that.
Yeah, but we always cheers each other.
Yeah. So yeah, if I get there a little early, if I get done with the errands a little early, then I pop in there and go, "There's communion." I zip up that side aisle because you're around the altar.
Yeah, cruising at that 6 miles up there.
It was kind of funny. I was doing some classroom visits because I'm on the BCS now, the Board of the Christian School, and Diane Henderson, Mrs. Henderson, said, "Any takeaways from this from Mr. Kindelin?" And one of the kids had mentioned about, don't be lazy, because I had talked about how I had got an A in my math class one semester when I wasn't lazy, and when I was lazy, I got a D. And so that was near the beginning of the session, too. So when she said any takeaways, and the one kid pipes up, don't be lazy, and something else about don't be daring because of, or reckless or whatever.
Reckless,
was.
Yeah.
And then she asked if there were any questions, and I forgot. So what other questions? With one stuck up, one kid says, how fast does that thing go? 6 miles an hour, you want to see?
Yeah.
And they were, it was gone. Oh,
nice.
We had a blast. We went out in the hall, and I zipped down and pretended like I couldn't stop till the last minute. They thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that, you began to connect into, this place with these people. You met Wendy and John and formed friends and
many others. So many other families. Like in the book, I started to name families, but then I went back and it's like, well, I'm only going to name like very impactful, not because of the situations, things like that. Like I named Tim Laps, for example. Tim's a friend, but he got named amongst other friends, lots of other friends, because he was on a nominating committee that said, hey, we want to run for elder. And then again, after I turned out for elder, he was on, when I thought I wasn't going to have to do anything for a while, he said, hey, you want to be on the school board?
Yeah, once he's got you, he's never going to let you go there. So you had said that one of your friends, maybe, I don't know if you included this in the book, the one friend who recommended Emmanuel actually wasn't really a believer at the time or wasn't walking with the Lord or something. Is that right?
That's right. That's my good friend Dave. But, he's a good man, but he has his own beliefs.
Sure. But he must have heard or seen something about Emmanuel that made him say, hey, why don't you try that place? I don't know if it was proximity or if he just did a drive-by or whatever. I'm just so glad he recommended it.
Oh, so much. I think he just knew someone who had...
Oh, he did? Okay.
And he said, hey, I know this guy who... He goes to a church that's about a mile from where you live.
Okay.
I said, oh, okay, we'll check that out. And he's actually been here with his brother, who is...
Yeah, I remember meeting him.
For a few Christmases. And,
I was just curious how he knew about Emmanuel.
But he... I knew someone. He knew someone who was...
Okay, that's
he was actually the guy who was there at Harvest Bible when we were looking around.
Oh, okay.
He was a believer.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. So then you began to grow and to be more connected and friends. And
you're an integral part, I would say, of our congregation, where I feel like everybody knows you because you just engage with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hang around in the back.
I was a talker. I'm blabbing.
No.
Not you.
No.
I was late for Bible study at one point, the 8 o'clock Bible study on Saturday morning. And Don Hertel is not very patient about coming here going, being on time, being a former school teacher. But he's very precise about those things. But after years and years of knowing me, it's coming in late from talking to someone right inside the main entrance, he said, "You're just a talker, aren't you?"
And especially, if you get you going on Len Dawson and the Chiefs, or the Beatles, or J.R. Tolkien.
You got the 3 down.
Yeah.
I know.
The only 3 things I know about. Of course, pronouns.
Well, I especially enjoy Kevin in my Sunday morning Bible class because he'll always throw out a one-liner, has to do with a lyric or something like that. And I think he does it just to see if I'm awake or listening. And most times I can grab it, or I'll throw one out to you.
You'll do the same.
Yeah, so I enjoy that little banter going back and forth. I don't know about the rest of the class, but they kind of like get along with it.
And I always enjoy when you pick out when my sermon titles are a reference to a song or a pop culture reference, because I like to throw random pop culture references into my sermon titles.
Yeah.
Because I know if there's a Beatles reference in my title.
Throw it in there. I'll catch that one. Yeah.
So
For sure. Well, anything else you want to share relative to the book and just to kind of, pique people's interests? This has really been great. Thank you for giving us a little
time with us.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for letting me talk about it, because it's something that I think that even though I didn't want to do it for so long, that I was meant to do. Something that I should have done.
and at least you tried writing the book.
I got it.
Took me a second.
Oh, we got the drum set over there. I should just hop over there and do a rim shot.
But it was supposed to have been said. The story was there's also about telling the truth about how difficult it was, what I've been through, some of the humiliating aspects, some of the embarrassing aspects that you don't talk, or that I haven't talked about. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. I've just tried to, not really. I was just too embarrassed to talk about a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And I felt, well, to help someone who's going through that,
You have to.
I have to talk about it.
You use this phrase, I'm ripping the mask off.
Yes. Taking that mask off, that's like, in the book, I talk about the mask of self-bravado. And then I had to put that on there when I went back to school, especially. Put up that false mask of self-bravado. Until the point where I didn't need it anymore. I was able to take it down. Now, sometimes I do put on a mask, and that might be, sometimes you get past the, don't want to show people the difficult days. And, this, a lot of times might be where you don't want to show that. It's not really, you just want to show the positive side of things. So sometimes that mask is there, but it's not the mask of false bravado.
Which is also a line in a song. Baby, come back. But in the mask of false bravado.
Is that in there? I didn't know that. Who does that song? Baby, come back.
Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could be. I was wrong. It's not Baker Street, is it? No, that's not Baker Street.
That was Jerry Rafferty.
That's right. It's not Hall & Oates. It's not Hall & Oates, is it? PD's on it. He's fast. Baby, come back.
Any kind of
Fool could see I was wrong. And I
Really? This is the name of the band?
You.
Player?
All right. Well,
It's a
there it
British
is.
American rock band.
I could see it.
Group members are Peter Beckett and J.C. Crowley.
That must have been a one-hit wonder.
That's probably
That's
all
what
there
I'm
was.
looking up
I
is
think
like-
it was.
It
was
that was
pretty.
70s. That was
The
I remember
70s, yeah.
The song itself came out October 13th, 1977. It's the single version.
Once you said false bravado, I was like, oh boy,
I
hit me.
wonder if I picked that up from that.
I don't know.
Put it in your head.
in 2011, the source. It was the source of a parody song by Chicago artist Magic One entitled "Cuddy Come Back," which alludes to Chicago Bears woes without quarterback Jay Cutler.
Cuddy come back.
I remember
Any kind of fool could see.
It took me a long time before I finally gave up on him.
Oh, man. Cuddy. I miss him.
I kind of miss him too.
He was such a brat.
Yeah, but he was like his just attitude in his wife's TV show where he's I just don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
And I'm just not here.
I never saw that show. Never saw that one.
He was the best part about it because he was just like they would do something kind of stupid and he'd be like, just like roll his eyes at him, just be like, he's like, oh, they're coming over your employees. I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with them. So just as kind of his attitude you would expect from him.
Right. I'm sorry. I took a very serious moment and threw it in the
I don't
trash.
know where we went with
Talking about taking the mask off, which I think you really explained really well, and I think you're right. You have to if you're trying to reach, people who are going through what you're going through. You have to be willing to be raw, right? Mm-hmm. Like because they're living that,
and that's
instead of just being that brave soldier. Everybody thinks you're so brave. Oh, Kevin, you're so no. I do what I do because I have to do what I have to do. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line.
Right, and so many people are looking for that vulnerability, which I think engages people and draws people in when somebody can be vulnerable, which it sounds like, because I know talking to you said a few times, like, oh, I get into some really details here that I've never shared before, so that vulnerability, and that's not an easy thing to do when you put it out there for the whole world to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to... Never thought I'd talk about how I had to relearn how to go to the bathroom again. In the
wow, yeah.
Talk about humiliating.
Yeah, I'll bet. I mean,
that was like, I would never talk about that.
Right. Well, who would think about that kind of thing?
You don't, but
it's
that guy
what
who's
happens.
in what's called now the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, who just broke his neck and doesn't know which end is
He's
up.
living it. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I got to be tough. I got to be a man. What am I going to do? And
right.
then goes to the bathroom all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's where. So if that guy can get something out of this book,
yeah.
Yeah, and as we wrap up, Kevin, I'll put the link in the description of this, and when I post about it on social media, and any sales you get from that, we get a 10% cut. That's our commission of promoting your book.
I make my money back, sure.
Yeah. As PD and P-Dubs promote this, we got to get a little bit of a cut here.
Awesome.
So, yeah, any closing thoughts from anybody?
Well, thanks for having me. My voice just cracked like a 15-year-old. Thanks for having me, and it's great to be a guest.
It was great to have you.
At least I'm not the only one.
Oh, man, it almost was like we had Stanley Steamer up in here, I was thinking.
Well, when you're 64 and your voice still cracks like a 15-year-old.
That's all right.
It's funny. It's something to laugh at.
Yeah, exactly.
What a great way to end on a laugh. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and see you next time. God's blessings.
Unscripted.